Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Gold as Girls. My name is Carla van Walsum, and my co-host for today is Rachel Rappelkort, and our special guest is Michelle Terris. Welcome, Michelle. I'm so happy to see you, and we live both in Florida. All of us live in Florida, so that's a very interesting meeting. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. It's a pleasure to see you again. We met recently at a Judeo-Christian event for Israel, and you highlighted in your wonderful speech some very interesting statistics, which we'll get into a little later on. But first, I want to move on to our topic, which is Jexit. And for those viewers who are not familiar with what Jexit is, can you please tell us what it is, how you got the name, and what inspired you to form this movement, this organization?
Jexit stands for Jews Exiting the Democrat Party. And by the way, I'm very honored to be with you ladies today. Thank you so much for this invitation. I started this organization back in about 2018 when I saw a need to educate our fellow Jews, our Jewish brothers and sisters, on the perilous shift that the party had taken to the far left. At the time, there was, as you know, Blexit, Lexit, Brexit, all of these other exit movements.
Yeah.
And I was beginning to see things that were very alarming, the rise in anti-Semitism and just a lot of things that were making people very uncomfortable, things that were already starting in Europe. I was friendly with people from the Netherlands, like you, Carla, that literally were told to hide your Judaica when you go to synagogue, take down your mezuzah. And I knew of this, but I also knew that it was an undercurrent was beginning to start here. And I recognized where it was coming from, and I felt a need to start this organization. But I had also thought that, well, somebody else must have thought of it. I can't be the only one. Sure enough, I was. So myself and a cantor, we both brainstormed together with the help of some rabbis that were very, very knowledgeable. And we put together the organization. It's a 501c4, not-for-profit Florida educational organization. And we became activists after a protest that we attended here in Lauderhill in 2018 at the Supervisor of Elections. And we uncovered some shady things that were going on, and it made national news. And at the time, I was called by all the news agencies because we had uncovered some corruption with snipped ballot ties and trucks coming in, unloading ballot boxes that, you have to keep with the ties and so on and so forth. At any rate, we felt very empowered that we were able to stop this potential steal, and we were able to push for a recount. And we have our great governor, as you know, who's been a great friend to the Jewish people. And after this protest, I was really empowered, along with the other women that went to these protests. And we decided to go to Capitol Hill. And we got a permit, and we stood against anti-Semitism and the resolution HR 183 that was unfortunately watered down. And, as Jews, we have to really speak out and stand firm on what we believe in. And this was an incredible event that got also national attention. 5 hours we stood on Capitol Hill. And at the very end, a group of yeshiva girls that were there touring with their school, they were in the backdrop right in front of the Capitol, and they sang Hatikva, and it was just the most moving. There were Jews and Christians, all walks of life, that attended from all over the country this protest. I mean, it wasn't a protest, it was a rally. Forgive me, not a protest. It was a rally against anti-Semitism. And it was in 2019, May. May of 2019. And it was just so moving, the unity that we had and the bond that we made. And when I got home, Jexit went into full anti-Semitism, standing against anti-Semitism mode, and educating our fellow Jews on the, as I said, the perilous shift that their party has taken. So we've been able to do a lot of exposing and a lot of empowering. Our organization never says no. We don't have no in our vocabulary. When we're asked to help a Jewish bullied student or deal with Holocaust denial, actually in Palm Beach County, we spoke at the school board when they had a problem with a principal that couldn't confirm that the Holocaust existed. Every Jewish organization was asked to attend, and myself and Lauren Gross with the Gross Family Center attended. And there was literally a Holocaust survivor sitting next to me. It was around during COVID time, and he had a mask on, but I could see the tears rolling down his face because, 75 years ago at the time was that, I mean, you're denying 75 years. Can you imagine? I mean, I would never have imagined that I would be dealing with Holocaust denial. I lived in Pittsburgh, as I shared with you, in Squirrel Hill, a very small Jewish town, with neighbors who survived the Holocaust with the tattoo on their forearm. And if you told me that I would be defending the Holocaust and fighting Holocaust denial, I would think you were crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're dealing with this, and we'll get into the reasons why, I would never have believed. And the first thing I said when I reached the mic was that I speak for the 6 million Jews that have no voice.
Yeah. This is the same principle that was in Boca Raton that you mentioned.
Correct.
He
Correct.
was moved to, because his saying was, the Holocaust is a belief, not a fact.
Yes.
That sentence, it's a belief, not a fact. And he is such a nice man as a principal. My youngest son, Ophir, definitely Hebrew names, liked him so much he could barely believe it. That's such a nice man. And you know what his answer was? That it is a belief because there are people in this school that do not believe it is a fact. So he wanted to be so politically correct, which means that you violate the truth or the fact in order to have no politics in school. It was so tricky how I've been very much involved with that story. It's so tricky how he did it and how it was also accepted. First, the whole Balaganda route, and then he was fired and he was not fired. And he went on. It is just
reinstated.
Yeah.
He was reinstated.
Yeah. And that is Palm Beach. I totally, it's a
But
very.
when you have a position like that, it's very dangerous. Now, it's very dangerous. And, the Holocaust studies is mandated in the state of Florida. But the problem is you can mandate all you want if it's not forced to be taught.
Yeah.
And the teachers are saying, oh, you don't have to show up today.
Yeah.
Then we're.
Yeah. And the other thing what I found being from Europe so weird, we speak about a high school. So how does this principal know that there are parents in the school who do not believe the Holocaust is a fact? What does that tell me? There is talking to the principal about there are many Jews in the school, right? Like 50% more or less is Jewish. So there has been some anti-Semitic stuff before that. Otherwise, how would you ever talk to a principal about a population in the school, where they come from, what it is about? The whole thing that he got to that belief already. There are parents that don't believe it. What kind of conversations are that? That is already such a warning signal to me.
Well,
In Boca,
isn't it strange that I'd heard about that story before, And I forgot that he was reinstated, which is shocking. But isn't it strange that there would be this kind of conversation? Well, why would there be conversation about whether the Holocaust happened or not? Was it because they were forced, they were being told you should be teaching the Holocaust, and some people protested it? I mean, I don't even understand.
No, parents go to him and speak to him, and that is anti-Semitism. That is pure anti-Jewish hate. That is a Jew hatred. To have those conversations, and what you said about the Netherlands before, Michelle, yeah, I can relate to that. It made us leave already in 2004 because I was foreseeing. So did my husband. What would happen in the Netherlands sooner or later? I had a lot of non-Jewish friends, a lot of Muslim friends who told me so many things. I really learned a lot from them. And that is often missing with a lot of Jewish people too. They have never read the Quran. They have no idea what's going on, let alone the great Muslims that are there too. I'm totally not hitting on one group, but that there is an ideology, specifically also in the Netherlands and Germany. You see it now in every European country, how powerful they are, and people cannot believe it. People cannot believe it's true, and they try to minimize it.
Well, I don't know if you know, we also held a rally in Sanborn Square for a bullied Jewish student at a school in Boca who was told they put a swastika on the board or on her locker. She came from she came from a family of Holocaust survivors. Her family contacted every Jewish agency and organization, and somebody sent her to us. And we, of course, acted on it immediately.
Was it Rena Exelbeard?
No,
Was not in college.
no, this was a high school.
Also in Boca.
This was Boca Raton Community High School.
Okay, yeah.
So we decided to hold a rally, and the situation was they had put a swastika on her locker and told her that one of the kids said that he's going to come with a backpack with explosives to blow her up. That let the Jew answer the question. She's the smart one. All these different anti-Semitic tropes that went on. And the mother called. Finally, she was referred to me. And we decided to hold a rally right in the heart of Boca, next to the Chabad there. We had an incredible turnout. Joyce Kaufman was there, some Congress people, even the one of the lawyers of the school board read. He couldn't read the letter, but he brought the letter there. So, long story short, it was very moving, very successful. We had Jews and non-Jews alike that were very, very supportive. And we tried to press the school. And right about that time is when COVID hit. And the outcome of this issue was we wanted the children that were dealing with this anti-Semitism in the school to attend our rally. And they were going to. And at the last minute, they backed out for fear. So we put a chair for the kids up front, and we said, these are your children, and they're not here because they're frightened. Anyway, the long and the short of it was that the school, instead of doing something to the actual kids that were causing this, they removed the child from the classroom and moved her to a different classroom. Yeah. So it was, COVID hit. It was infuriating. It was really upsetting to me. I think I've repressed a lot of it because I was very upset with fighting the Holocaust denial and the Jewish organizations and agencies not attending. And then the same thing with this kid. So it's just us, we're a small self-funded organization that stands up. But if you don't have power behind you in the masses, you're going to get swallowed up.
Yeah.
Your voices aren't going, but we have empowered many, many people to find their voices. It's so important, as I said, because we're dealing with a corrupt media and we're dealing with propaganda. And at this point, all we do have is our God-given voices, which are so important.
Yeah.
You know, Michelle, what you said about that girl being removed from the class and put into another class, that seems to be the kind of thing that's happening all over the place. Like in Toronto, for example, which is where I'm from, uh, what happens is Jewish people get assaulted, they get attacked. They're standing with an Israeli flag where these pro-Hamas people are spewing their hatred and being aggressive and violent. And instead of stopping those people, the police remove the Jew who's standing there peacefully, not doing anything, or at the most saying, Am Israel Chai. And so that is the most infuriating, horrible, frustrating thing when the victim is the one that pays the price.
Yeah.
And the perpetrator is okay, which just gives them more power and impetus to continue. It doesn't stop them. And so when I see that, it makes my blood boil
Yeah.
because
No
it's
consequences. There's no consequences.
It's
consequences.
also such a bad educational sign. It's like, that evil wins. When you said that, Rochelle, I read, and you probably too, that last weekend there was a terrible demonstration in London. And there was one guy, and he was shouting, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, and he got arrested. And I'm like, how only saying this, my people is alive, my people will be alive, you will arrest it, and for the rest, you can say anything and it's fine because it has a different flag on it. Yeah, we are in a very difficult situation, I would say.
Well, the other we're saying the nation of Israel lives, and they're saying from the river to sea, which means annihilate the Jews.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that is.
That's okay. That's all right.
I think that most
the world is upside down.
Totally. And I think that most of the people even don't know exactly what it means.
Right.
From the river to the sea or free
No.
Palestine.
No.
They just don't know exactly what it is. They have not been in Israel. They have not learned any history. They have no facts. And a lot of Jews don't know.
Well, that's what we talked about in
Yes.
the event that I attended, is that Jewish American anti-Semitism in America should be non-existent. And the reason why I say that is, number one, Jews must embrace their identity and their faith a bit more, because if they embrace their identity, they would know their history. And in America, Jewish Americans have a very rich history. And wherever I go, they are unaware of the fact that one of our founding fathers, I gave the book, is a gentleman by the name of Chaim Solomon.
Yeah.
Is a Polish Jew who financed the Revolutionary War, who died broke. And George Washington actually asked him how he could repay him. And Chaim Solomon said, take care of my people. To which George Washington wrote a letter to Toro Synagogue in Rhode Island, which is still standing today. And I have a segment of the letter. Here it is. George Washington said to the Hebrew congregation in Newport, Rhode Island, he affirmed the principle of religious freedom, and he wrote on behalf of Chaim Solomon and the Jews that financed the Revolutionary War, quote, may the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. This statement, referencing a verse from Micah, emphasized in the Bible Washington's commitment to guaranteeing Jewish people and all religious groups the same freedoms and protections in America. Now, the Jews that lived during the Revolutionary War that helped finance, there was a 10% participation rate in the war, while there was only a 3% participation rate in the rest of the country, which means every Jewish family stood up to fight and finance. In World War II, over 500,000 Jewish Americans fought to defend our Constitution. Therefore, Jewish Americans kept America America during the Revolutionary War, defended the Constitution. So actually, anti-Semitism in America is not only anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and anti-Jewish. It happens to be anti-Christian, anti-American, and anti-God. Now, if Jewish Americans knew their identity and the rich history we have keeping America America, this nation, anti-Semitism should never, ever exist in America.
I so agree with you, and it would be an excellent book to filter that all out. And it's so wonderful that you read that letter too, because I noticed that too. You know, you cannot go to any concert, to any university or hospital, and you see a Jewish name that it has been donated. There has been so much given, but most people today even don't recognize Jewish names. They don't know. I think it would be a wonderful book to put all the good deeds in that, because it is huge and it is very unfair. And well, it's another thing that is unfair, right? Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is that Jewish values are American values.
Correct.
And, that's something that I think a lot of people, including Jews, don't even realize.
Well, we live in a Christian nation founded upon Judeo-Christian principles that were rooted in our Torah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's the irony of this whole situation.
Yeah. And right now we're dealing with a threat against Western civilization. And the biggest issue with the demonizing of Israel is that Israel is the West's first line of defense. And Jews and Christians are the last guardians of Western civilization. We must unite because we share the same God, the same values, and we are being attacked within.
Yeah. And if you see now in Syria, how many, and then in Iraq as well, how many Christians are slaughtered today, and we don't hear nothing about it.
Well, that's been going on for such a long time. Nobody protests what's happened to the Uyghurs in China, all the Christians in all these different countries that are being slaughtered.
India. Yeah.
Because, nobody gives a damn to talk about it, to protest about it. But when Israel is involved, Jews are involved, the criticism comes down with a heavy hammer.
No news, no Jews, or no Jews, no news. Yeah. Either way.
But we have to stop funding our own demise. That's where Jexit comes in. Like, I don't want to get off on, too much of a dividing topic, but for instance, you need to know where your dollars are going. Mm-hmm. When the Jews were donating all their money to the BLM movement, if you would know at the bottom of the BLM website, the money went to Act Blue, which was the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
So you need to, regardless if that's what if you support a movement, find out where the money's going. Because potentially, if you don't know where your money's going, your money could be going to harm you and your children.
And the other way too, a lot of people even didn't read what was written on the website of BLM, and it was very, very pro-Palestine without that they knew they were talking about, and it was definitely anti-Israel. And then I cannot believe that, and that is the niceness of people, that they're ignorant, they don't know, they give good-hearted money because it's not nice, you don't like discrimination, and what happened to us should not happen to others, right? That is a very big mindset among European Jews, but I see in America also with quite some Jews. No, it's true, it should not happen to anybody, but this is not the way. And if we don't stand up for ourselves, it anyway can happen again. I mean, the propaganda today, as it is so smart, filtered and planned, but coming from Qatar, etc., for so many years, much more propaganda, much more and much stronger than it was in the Third Reich in Nazi Germany. And they could do so much with the little propaganda they had and the living dormant feelings of anti-Semitism. Now it's worldwide so strong, so strong.
One of the things that I feel catapulted this, and I shared it in the event, was during COVID. We were dealing with a very sinister type of a power that many people were unaware of, because I questioned what was going on when I was wiping the groceries off in my garage the second day of COVID. And I know that I certainly can't wipe off a virus or bacteria or whatever the heck it was. And I shared that I looked around in the garage and I thought, is Ashton Kutcher here punking me? Because this is ridiculous. What am I doing? And I went in the house, and it was that moment that I said, we're in trouble, and I need to know where the truth is. Where does truth lie? And that's where it's so important that we think independently and stop being programmed. Literally, they call the TV programs, right? We're being programmed and by narratives that are being funded that we don't even know. But the one thing that struck me was, why are strip clubs, bars, and casinos open?
Right.
And houses of worship, places where you go during pandemic or during struggles and during hardship. Where is the religious leadership in this country? Why are we not able to go to a church or a synagogue? That led me to understand there was something very, very wrong going on. So I shared that I started to dig deep online for voices of religious leaders that had the courage to stand up. I know there was one in Canada, a pastor who was jailed.
Yeah.
But I started to search, and I didn't care, even being Jewish, I didn't care if it was a pastor or a rabbi. I needed to find somebody with a voice who was going to encourage us. And when you deal in hardship, you turn to your creator, who gives you, our freedom comes from our inalienable rights, not from government. It comes from our creator. Why are we asking government for freedom? Why are we being locked in our homes? This was wrong to me. Never felt right. So I stumbled upon this pastor that had started to gain a lot of attention. It was a young pastor in Orlando, actually. And I happened to listen to one of his sermons one day, and it moved me. I'm not saying this is what I believe in or what you should believe in, but the metaphor that he used was it resonated with me. He said that he had come home and he was in his kitchen and a demon appeared, and he started to have this conversation with the demon. And he said he wasn't frightened, and the demon transfigured and whatever. They're having this conversation. And he said to the demon, "Tell me, who is your leader?" And I always ask the groups I speak to, I say, who do you think he said is his leader? And the people that they spew out are, different political figures that they may not identify with or that they may not like. And it's very funny because, you hear the ones on the left say one thing, the ones on the right say another. But he actually said, the demon said to the pastor, "My leader is the media." And everybody in the room goes, "Oh!" And the truth of the matter is that the media is the great Satan of our time.
Yep.
And we have to really dig deep within our core to search for truth, because truth doesn't always come in the forms that we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered and I saw that there was this medical tyranny, and this, was an experiment, if you will. This has gone on in history before. We have to know our history, because, a nation that forgets its past has no future. We have to look back, and especially as Jews, we have such a rich history from from the Exodus until now, and we continually fall into the same traps. Each generation has anti-Semitism, rising up, and it takes strong Esthers and Mordecais with voices to combat this anti-Semitism and to stop it each generation.
Yeah. That's so well said, Michelle. How do you feel like Jackson is perceived in Boca and Wellington? Well, you live not in Wellington. Well, it doesn't matter where you live in South Florida. How you feel that is perceived? Do people listen to you and agree with you and change their opinion? Get what you mean? Get what you say?
We have tremendous support because we share stories. I shared a story the other night about my grandmother who, if she saw what was going on, she's rolling in her grave because she fled from persecution during the pogroms. And the issue that I have is that when I ask the groups of different people in these events if they've shared their stories, they haven't. I don't know why, but the problem is that I only knew my grandmother's story because I used to hear her screaming at night, having nightmares.
Yeah.
And since she lived with us, I was the only grandchild. I would go into her room and ask her, Nana, why are you crying? What's wrong? And she shared the stories with me that were horrific. I mean, she told me that when she was a little girl, she hid in the haystacks she's from Kiev, and she hid in the haystacks and they came with pitchforks to kill everybody, the Russian Cossacks.
Yeah.
And a Christian family hid her in their attic, but not before they made her watch as they humiliated a rabbi in the streets. They made him dance and they sliced him into pieces alive. So she had to watch all of this. And when she came to this country, she came with potato sacks for shoes and landed on Ellis Island. And they gave her a name and an age. And she went and, they kissed the ground that they arrived, and they didn't take handouts, no government handouts. They went to work. She delivered bagels as a youngster, learned the language, assimilated, never looked back, never told the stories to anybody. I'm the only one in the family that knew the stories because I heard her screaming at night.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I carried that with me. It was like a dirty little secret, the elephant in the living room. And I realized that there was no coincidence. I was made to hear these stories because later in my life, I would then understand that you don't have to be dead to warrant sharing your story. She survived. That's more reason to share the story because it's just as important. She wasn't murdered. A lot of her family and friends were, but she survived. And this wasn't a Holocaust moment. This was a pogrom in Russia. And there's many pogroms. We never talk about the Baltic. We never talk about Aden, Yemen, who today, if you're from Aden, which is an incredible Jewish community in Yemen, you can't even get a passport with Aden. They give you a passport that says Yemen. That's not true. Jews are being just silenced and censored and minimized and discriminated against because we don't know our rich history. We don't share our stories. So to go on with this story, I find that a lot of families that came from persecution, these people have PTSD that was never dealt with.
Yeah, and they couldn't
and in the genealogy, it's a learned behavior on how to deal with stress and suffering. It's a learned behavior that you just don't talk about it. That's not how we deal with suffering. We must share our story. So I ask people wherever I go, did you share your stories and your rich history, your rich Jewish history from when your family came here to this country? Nobody shares it. Eventually, we won't have these survivors here anymore. And the enemy is rewriting, editing, deleting, and erasing our history. We won't have any history to share.
Yeah.
It's so important that we share.
There are many, many, many books written, though. In the Netherlands, I think the highest percentage was murdered in the Netherlands, but there are many, many documents from sole survivors. So there is a lot of written material in books. But we know now that also Wikipedia is being sued by a group of lawyers, Jewish lawyers, of course, because nobody else does it, because it's so falsified, the information that is there about Israel's history, about Israel's existence. So I think personally that it's very important for American Jews to stand up, stand out, and don't be afraid. We should not be afraid.
That's
Look at
right.
Israelis, what they go through. I was a few days ago, sorry, a few days ago, I came back from Israel. It's so different. It's like we need to be courageous and strong because that fear, but I see that mainly also what you mentioned about the generational thing. It's like if you live for centuries unprotected and in fear, like in Russia and all that. I know a lot about the pogroms. It is like horrific. Even 1922 or 21, they killed in Ukraine 100,000 Jews in the style of October 7. And nobody, a lot of Jews even don't know that.
They don't know.
So
Same
it
with
is
the Baltics. The Baltics people don't know
no.
that.
And if you then go to move to a free country while you lived for centuries unprotected and in fear, then you see in America a lot of people, a lot of Jews are still fearful. They don't have to be fearful because you are protected, not always, but you have at least police, you have at least there is much more justice here and protection than ever was in Eastern Europe. So you need to change your thinking too. And I'm really disappointed in many American Jews that I know, they stay home, they don't want to do anything, they find it already hard to put a signature. I see it with the WhatsApp groups, you know. I don't want to spit in our own thing here, but it is so important to face all the resilience and the power you have as a human. We have it and we need it. And you are an example of that. If we don't stand out and also look what happened if you are afraid, if you let fear manage and regulate your life. See what happens with dogs. If a dog meets somebody that is fearful, then they will attack you. People sense your fear, so they will get to you. And it is hard for college kids. It's hard for high school kids and middle school kids and elementary school kids if there's nothing done about it. But we can grow our resilience. We need to grow that.
I think one of the things I looked back on my life and I said, why am I so different from everyone else in my family? And I discovered that part of that reason, I think, is because when I was 18, I moved to Israel and studied in Israel, and I saw the world through a different lens. My peers at the time were in the IDF. It was just a different time. We were in the bomb shelters a lot. It was 80, 81 when Reagan was shot that year. It was a very volatile time in Israel. I lived on the Green Line in the north of Israel. You know, I worked in Kiryat Shmona.
Wow.
And we were threatened every day, but I never felt safer. So
That's the irony about Israel. So many people.
Yeah. And my
say,
peers, my peers were literally, you know, on the front lines. And I saw the world through their eyes, and I realized how important a strong military was. And I said to myself, and I was young, so, you know, I was of voting age, and I looked and I said to myself, you know what? I don't know much about politics, but I do know one thing. I'm going to find out who the enemy wants in power, and I'm going to vote the opposite. And that was voting 101.
Exactly.
And so
it tells you everything.
Told me everything. I said, it's not complicated. Just find out who the enemy wants and vote the opposite.
Yeah.
And it happened to be different from my family and their
they don't understand it then, and it makes so much sense what you say, and I find that a very smart approach.
It's kind of funny though.
What is the opposite? What's my enemy voting? Yeah. So okay.
So I think that molded and shaped me, and I felt, you know, when you go at that age, Israel was a lot different. It was, you know, you could hitchhike. We traveled when the kids came home from military, they served during the week, then they'd come home on the weekend and we'd tour, we'd go all over the place. And you felt a real connection to the land. It was not as metropolitan and not as crazy as it is now, like New York, you know, never sleep, you know, the Shabbat was observed. It was just a whole different, it was not as secular, if you will, but you really felt a connection to the land. So I think it had a profound effect on my life and my decisions and how I viewed the world and how I questioned things, and how I didn't believe everything that was told to me. I wanted to know for myself. And if it didn't feel right in my gut, in my heart, then I didn't allow my brain to change my instincts. And I do a lot by instinct, intuitive nature, because I think that that comes from God.
That's even proven with science today, that we have a spiritual component in our system. So science that has been for years so anti-religion, right? And many Jews are part of that too, many secular Jews. Now it's really proven. It's very interesting. And it contributes to your health. You're less depressed because you allow other things, and only what you can see you can prove, and that's the truth. No, there's so much
And
more.
our whole religion is based on hope.
Yeah.
If you don't have hope, you have nothing.
Totally true.
And hope,
Isn't that
like,
the,
and that's
title
why
of the Israeli national
exactly
anthem,
the
Hatikva.
Hatipa. And it's funny because my kids, if somebody says to my kids, is your mom a morning person or a night person? They're perplexed. They're like, she's an all day person because I'm not moody. Like, they've never seen me in a bad mood. And it's because I have hope.
Yeah.
And I have a
wow.
spiritual belief system that gives me that discernment, wisdom, strength, hope, and courage all in one. So I really give the credit to Hashem.
You know what? That actually reminds me of one of the things I was thinking about from the speech that you gave at that Judeo-Christian club. You were talking about these statistics, and there's too many to mention here, but we'll put them up in the description later. But if you could just bring up a couple of the reasons that you think that those Jews who are reluctant to make the Jexit move.
Right.
What the reasons for, some of the reasons in those statistics, that was very interesting.
It's very interesting. And that's the number one question we get asked most is, why do most Jews vote left? And this is literally from a rabbi who he and I did this research. So it's fact. The vast majority of Jewish Americans don't really care about Judaism or Israel. They care about secular leftism, which is their religion.
Yes.
And the polls show it. American Jews are the least religious of all religious groups in America.
Yeah.
41% say that their religion is important to them in their daily life. 34% said they attend religious services at least monthly. 22% of Jews say they have no religion. 38% say their Jewish identity has anything to do with religion at all, and 10% of Jews identify as Orthodox, which Orthodox meaning people observing commandments in daily life. And as for Israel, just 30% of Jews say they are very attached to Israel. Only 43% of Jews have ever been to Israel. And just 40% of Jews believe God gave Israel to the Jewish people. 27% say God didn't. 28% said they don't even believe in God. So based on these polls, what does being Jewish mean to most Jewish Americans? 73% of Jews said it was about remembering the Holocaust. Just 19% said it was about observing Jewish law. So Jews, in other words, are not religious. They don't care about.
It shows also that the Reform synagogues and maybe the conservative synagogues, and I don't like to attack or being critical, but a lot of people go to do their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, and there's education available, but it shows also that the education failed in a way. One of my dearest friends who had that entire upbringing in the Reform world, now she is more in Chabad, she's in her 50s, and when October 7th was there and we went to a demonstration, and she said, I actually don't know what Zionism is. And I was like, no, not to blame her, but a Jewish person with such a Jewish heart and so much, she did so much for Israel. If you don't know what Zionism is, what that is really so elementary, and why did they miss out teaching that? That has to do probably too to want to be fit in society, don't stand out, don't speak up too much, because the dual loyalty. I mean, how is it with politicians that are Jewish? You know, there are always people look at them, dual loyalty. Who are you serving first? You're Jews or America? It is also a part of the problem.
You know what I say to that?
No.
Israel is our greatest ally.
Yeah.
Israel is, as I said before, the West's first line of defense. Israel is preeminent in national security. They fight it every day. They're our national security partner. They're here to help us. If they lose this war on terror, we lose this war on terror.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
but I think most of these Jews don't get it. They don't see it. They're not aware of it. They really do not realize. And I think they want to be liked, and they have this mistaken belief that if they vote left, they're going to be liked by their peers.
Or if they march with their enemy, they think they're immune and exempt. They'll be the first to
be the first to
go. So that leads me to the next thing. Christian Zionists in this country are our best friends, not the American left.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you a little testimony that we were invited to a revival, like a spiritual revival in Texas. And we went with a group of Christians that support Israel, love Israel. And we went as a group of Jews to support their spiritual revival. And they're pro-Israel, so on and so forth. We got criticized by our own people because they don't believe in spiritual revival. So I had to change the wording to a cultural revival. But the fact that we were criticized living in a Christian nation with the Christian Zionists, it tells you everything you need to know, because we're 15 million in the world and decreasing. We're the Saturday folks. We're the canary in the coal mine, right? They're coming for the Christians too. We've got to unite, because of the enemy of Western civilization and Judeo-Christian worldview. The enemy has joined forces with one another. They have joined forces. So we've got to join forces. But long story short, we end up going. Nobody knew what a Jew was. So how important was it that we would go to represent? And we educated people that had never seen a Jew in this country. So if we don't go to these places, how do we expect people to, if we don't share and expose who we are to others and other, areas, how do we expect them to know who we are? And how do we expect them to not believe the lies they're being told?
Yeah, exactly.
So we were criticized by our own. I had to literally change the wording on the flyer because it was offensive to Jews that we were going to a spiritual revival. They weren't proselytizing us. And by the way, the enemy wants us gone. The Christians that want to proselytize, if they do, they think they're saving us. So I tell my Jewish friends, just say, hey, I'm good for today. You don't need to save me. I'm good. But the fact that they want to, it's totally the opposite of the enemy. They're fighting for Western civilization. We have to be a little more understanding of these people that are our best friends in this country. They're not the Jews that were preyed upon by Christians in Europe, that legacy. It's not the same. And we've got to recognize that.
Yeah.
Michelle, quite a few years ago, I went to an annual conference of CUFI, Christians United for Israel. And I was blown away by the support for Israel. The event was called a Night for Israel. It was unbelievable. You had Hispanics, Blacks, Asians, all kinds of people, Christians, dancing the hora, and Israeli flags on the dinner tables.
Mhm.
It was incredible. They were our biggest supporters.
They raised more money. Kufi and Pastor Hagee raised more money for Israel than any other organization.
I know. I
Wow.
actually met him,
Wow.
and it was just incredible to see. It's like, who would have thought that Christians could be our friends? But there are many that are.
They are.
It depends also what Christians, what is their
Yeah.
ideology,
They
for
were
sure.
evangelical
Yeah,
Christians.
it's not the traditional anti-Semitism anymore, that we kill Jesus and we will burn for the rest of our
Right,
lives for
right.
generations. Wow, that is so wonderful, Michelle. I think we are getting to the end more or less, and we usually have at the end our well, how do we call it? Our anti-Semit of the week, or a group of anti-Semites, whatever it is. So I would like to give first the word to Michelle.
Okay, so again, Harvard University. Two Harvard University students assaulted a Jewish peer. And what did Harvard do as their consequence? They received these two people who assaulted the Jewish student received honors and a $65,000 fellowship. So here again, the perpetrator of the crimes gets the award, and the Jewish kid is the victim that has no support whatsoever. So I picked Harvard.
Yeah, terrible. What about you, Michelle? You must have a lot of stories too.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, I'm the first to look within our own people, like the Schumers and the Sanders, that are very dangerous. And if a non-Jew calls them out, then they're an anti-Semite. But I feel I can call them out.
Oh yeah,
And
please do.
I call out our own. We have a responsibility to understand that that anti-Semitism is at an all-time high, and we have to be responsible, because it's a very dangerous position to be in when you're in a position of power with money. And so they are just absolute enemies to our own people. And then you look at the righteous Gentiles who are heroes, like Douglas Murray and the son of Hamas.
Yeah.
And I mean, these people risk their lives more than our own
And a
to
lot.
save us.
Yeah.
To save us.
Yeah. Yeah. Very wonderful. I first wanted to say something about some European countries that want to put more pressure on Israel. For the same token, to stop the war, and I don't hear anything about hostages all the time. But I actually gear towards, I saw a few videos this week again. Some Jews, you mentioned a few of them, but I speak out now about Jews that are not politically active, but feel the need to, professors, whatever, feel the need to publicly attack Israel or to come with crappy information. And I really call it crappy because not everything is so well founded, and doing so much harm to us. It's like how Yochai Sponder, I hope you know him too, is a funny Israeli guy. He said, shut up, because we don't need your opinion. Wait a little bit, and that is, we call it the self-hating Jews, or it goes before. I made a term about it. It's the reverse loyalty syndrome.
I call them the golden calf Jews, because they should go back to Egypt.
Yes.
By the way, only 20%
Please
left
do.
anyway.
Yeah.
So
please
it's
go
the
there.
It's the Mordecais and the Esthers that are going to help
Yeah.
save, because they're it's always a smaller number, because God does his work through those that are the warriors, the true warriors, the
Yeah.
Gideons.
But it is so sad because they convince so many other people, anti-Semites, anti-Zionists, And then, no, I'm not a Zionist. No, I'm not a Zionist. And then I'm like, okay, what do you do if they come here to take you, go to lay on your back, like, please kill me, take my family? At that moment, they will be different in their opinions. And I dislike that so badly. I call it reversed loyalty syndrome because you are so loyal to the others, not to yourself or your own group, because out of fear, because I'm a better person. That thing, I just don't like that. So this is for today, my concern.
Yeah, I think
Okay, let's go to the good ones. There you go, Rochelle. Oh, sorry, but
that's the moral superiority.
yes, that is so. The moment you think you are better because
Yeah.
you have a better opinion than others, you're a better person, you're so disconnected from your real source and from the divine and from what is meant to be as a human. That's part of the big problem. Yeah. Okay, Rochelle, time for some positive notes now.
Okay. So I,
Like a over
oh,
Shelton.
sorry. You said Rochelle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I chose Shabbos Kestenbaum because
Mm.
he's the Harvard University graduate who pursued a lawsuit against Harvard because of the fact that they did not protect the Jewish students. And right now, he's in the process of donating a kidney to somebody he doesn't know. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Wow.
And that's very, very special. And he's just an incredible guy and an incredible, um, just somebody that you can look up to
Yeah.
because he,
Powerful.
he, yeah, and he's quite a religious. I think he's observant. So that's who I picked.
Yeah. Wonderful. Michelle.
So I'm going to go with Douglas Murray. I listened recently to a podcast of his. I'm trying to find one of the quotes that I put up. It was fantastic, and I can't find it now.
Oh yeah, he has many of those. Like, yeah.
It was on his podcast. It was amazing. He was explaining how important it was that we don't focus on the anti-Semitism solely, the anti-Semite solely. We've got to focus on the supporter of the anti-Semite. And it was just really profound, this Zoom that he did last week, and I listened to it. And so I'm going with Douglas Murray. He's incredible in his delivery. He's been to Israel, Gaza. He goes on different podcasts and just fights for Israel and for the truth. And he's my man.
Yeah.
He's
Oh yeah.
amazing.
We
We
all
love
love him. We
we
all
love
love
it.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a different group actually again, and that are Israeli people, historian, journalists that speak out also against the mainstream in a way in Israel, right? We know about that too, how that can be complicated. And it is, I mentioned a few, Gadi Taub, Chaviv Retik Gur, and Einat Wilf. That are just a few names that they are very courageous and are very well reversed and educated in the whole history. And they spend a lot of time speaking online in JNS and Jewish National Syndicate on YouTube. And I wish that they would get out more there because it's growing slowly, but it is so important. Yeah. And I really, that's very inspirational to me that to listen to them. I also listened a lot in the past to Carolyn Glick, and it was so bad. And I usually do that at the end of the evening, so I fall asleep at a certain time. And I was driving. I had to drive in Florida, a long distance, and I was like, "Oh, let me listen to her." And I was halfway. I was listening to her. I got so sleepy, so I parked on the side because I was so trained, like listening to her and falling asleep at a park. So driving, I had the same mechanism. So I slept for 10 minutes in front of Publix and I continued to travel. It's kind of funny.
She came and spoke to our group in Israel
Oh, yeah.
right before October 7th. We took Tom Homan, who is the
Oh, yeah.
border czar. We took him and Sarah Carter two incredible national security experts to Israel, and Carolyn spoke to us. Avi Abelo spoke to us.
Yeah.
And speaking of JNS, I wrote an op-ed. I was a Florida delegate
Nice.
To the RNC, and I can't believe the experience I had was incredible. I wrote an op-ed and they published it.
Nice. Good for you.
They have
Yeah.
tremendous love for the Jewish people, and we have a home. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's with so much love
incredible.
and care. Yeah, I agree. And Avi Abelov too. We will have him soon too. It's amazing, those people and the power. He was a reservist, I think, already 3 times, and also
Yeah.
his grown-up sons are in the army.
With sons in the Gaza.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so very much for your wonderful information and your presence and your ideas. Michelle, it was wonderful to have you, and Rachel, as always. And this is the end of our conversation. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.